Warning: the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
I feel we have no reason to fight in Iraq. I mean, they took over the Sunni Triangle. That's because we left there. We didn't even leave a contingent force behind to protect the oil fields or protect our contractors, because Obama wanted to cut and run to satisfy the Occupy movement that is behind this campaign, to satisfy the Code Stinko women, who you've not been hearing from them lately. Have you heard of the Code Pink women? Where have they gone? They certainly haven't all died, have they? The ones who would stink up Congress every few months with their lousy protests? Well, they're not saying anything because he's cut and run the way they want them to. So he's appeased them with the Iraq situation. But take a guess who's pushing Obama to get American troops back. Now, of course, as you know, he announced last night after I went off the air that he's sending troops back, boots on the ground. Now, Friday when I was on the air, remember he said no boots on the ground? Raise your hand in the audience if you remember Michael Savage saying on Friday, right here in front of this large audience, that when he said no troops on the ground in Iraq, I said, well, he's against it today. I wonder how long it's going to take for him to be for it tomorrow. Raise your hand if you remember that. Thank you very much. The whole audience raised their hand. I make believe I'm in an auditorium like the Yankee Stadium, and everyone raised their hand in the auditorium and said, yeah, Mike, I remember you said that he was against boots on the ground until he'll be for him. Well, now he's for him. So now he's sending a protective force, and soon he'll have to send the force to protect the protective force when they get surrounded and cut off by the cutthroats and dirty nightshirts. And then he'll have to send another force to protect the protectors of the protective force. And before long, we have the domino theory of Vietnam all over again. And then, of course, it'll be a good war for the liberals who'll say Bush got us into it and he had to clean it up. So there's no winning in politics. There's only talk and rubbish, and America's sons die for no reason whatsoever. And yet, who is egging him on to send troops? Not only Code Stinko, but wait a minute. You're going to hear a familiar voice, a whiny liberal voice from New York City, a rich boy's son in clip one. Listen to this now.
He goes on TV today and says this is a strategic crisis for the reasons I'm going to lay out here. We have to do something that no one wants to do, which is to go back in with a lot of air power and with special forces and maybe a few conventional troops to help stabilize the situation. We cannot allow an al-Qaeda-backed group to dominate one part of the Middle East and Iran and Iranian-backed groups to dominate another part of the Middle East. It's an unacceptable threat.
I think that Bill Kristol, who's probably never fired a Daisy BB gun, my suspicion is Bill Kristol is, again, one of those neocons, along with Paul Wolfowitz and the other pack of wolves, who got us into Iraq to begin with by putting out the same narrative in 2003. Here he is again, a guy who probably would have a conniption if there was a backfire in Manhattan while he was walking in the street. If Bill Kristol was going out for souvlaki for lunch, let's say, from the Weekly Standard, and a truck backfired, I would suspect he would dive underneath the nearest newsstand and call 911. The same Bill Kristol, who's probably never fired a BB gun in his life, now wants your son to go back to Iraq to die for the military-industrial complex. It's amazing to me that he actually put out a narrative that Mr. Obama should use to go back into Iraq. Isn't it amazing? The guy who would jump from a backfire is now Mr. Gung-Ho. Well, that's the news as I see it. Kristol says we have to go back into Iraq.